Okay, we're ready to begin. So I'm going to stop share. And Darty, you can take it away. Darty, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? There we go. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's meeting discussing Bill 217. We are going to start with the opening protocol. And doing our protocol this evening is Kuka Hakalau, along with her Mo'opuna.
Okay. Mahalo nui Darty. We are going to start with a greeting that greets everybody from the most powerful deity all the way down to the little mo'o or the little spider on the wall. And then we will do an oli called Eho Mai that asks for knowledge from above. Makaukau? Aloha e ie. Aloha e nā kua. Aloha e nā aumakua. Aloha e nā li'i o Hawaii. Aloha e nā kupuna. Aloha e nā makua. Aloha e ka lehulehu. Aloha e ie. E ho mai kai ke mai luna mai e. O nā mea huna no e au o nā meli. E ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai e ho mai kai ke mai luna mai e. O nā mea huna no e au o nā mele. E ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai e ho mai kai ke mai luna mai e. O nā mea huna no e au o nā mele. E ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai e. Mahalo nui.
Mahalo. Mahalo ku. At this time, we're going to show a slide with the participant list. Heather? Mahalo, Heather. So we're going to go down our list and have opening comments. We're going to start off with Valerie Poindexter, followed by a representative from the Hawaii County DPW Department. So Val, if you want to start.
Okay, I just unmuted myself. Okay, so I've been working with several community groups on issues facing Waipio Valley since 2013. Around there, Waipio Community Circle was one of the first with Enti Ku'ule, Badua, and Friends of the Future, and then Waipio Terra Farmers Association, and Ha'ola o Waipio when they formed after I got into office. So we together held many community meetings to talk about issues, facing Waipio. And our first priority at that time with Enti Ku'ule was making sure that we could bring back the Ranger program, which is now known as the Information and Educational Officer program. because things are getting kind of out of control up at the top of the valley. You know, parking was a mess, blocking driveways, vehicles going down and not knowing how to traverse the road. So many things were happening and they needed those officers back. So I want to personally say thank you to Auntie Kule for pushing to get that program funded and up and running, and her commitment to Waipio. And I also want to thank the educational officers who, you know, they've been keeping our statistics over all these years. You know, the amount of vehicles, hikers, both visitors and locals coming into the valley. And these statistics played a critical role in justifying the need for legislation to protect Waipio. The educational officers, we all know, is not an enforcement position, but they work closely with our police officers who are responsible to enforce some of the things happening in Waipio. So they stay in close contact with each other. So after many years of community meetings with all the Waipio groups, two things needed to be addressed immediately, and that was the vehicular access and the pedestrian access. We worked with our corporation council and was advised that we needed two separate pieces of legislation. You know, one was for pedestrian access and one was to address vehicular access. So the pedestrian access, as you know, that's what the bill is now before the council. And while they work, while Council Member Kimball will continue to work on the permitting process legislation for vehicular access. So I know the public was a little confused as why are we doing just pedestrian access, but we're doing both. But it was a pedestrian access was ready to go forward with the blessing of our corporation council. And while Heather will continue to work, like I said, on the pedestrian legislation. And I want to thank Tim Richards, who's on now, you know, for always being there to help anytime we needed his assistance in Waipio, especially with the situation with the horses and stuff. So anyway, mahalo to all of you, you know, and thank you, Ku Kakalau, for giving me some direction in that bill, making it real clear on the Native Hawaiian cultural practices. And so I appreciate that. So if later, if anyone has any questions, I'll be on. So mahalo.
Mahalo, Val. Mahalo, Val. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And our representative from DPW.
Aloha. My name is Ikaika Rodenhurst, and I am the Director Select for the Mitch-Roth administration for DPW. And you know, I look forward to following this closely. I know I'm here to update you folks on the status of the evaluation report of the rockfall hazard and slope stability. You know, I know this is something that's very important to you folks, and the safety of our roadways and our accessways is very important to me and to the rest of DPW. I'm currently awaiting the report that's gonna detail what our slope stability issues and rockfall hazards are occurring at this time. And it will also provide us some recommendations on how we can mitigate those hazards and what level of hazards we would be facing. And at that point, we can determine what kind of solutions we can address this with. So I look forward to engaging with the public and engaging with the council members on how we can achieve safety for this road and for the community. I will follow this closely and get you updates as soon as they're available. And if there's any questions, please feel free to ask me. So at this point, that's all I have. I know it's short and brief, but as I transition into this role and get more information, I will provide as much as possible. So, mahalo.
Mahalo, Ikaika. Up next, we are going to hear from the Waipio Taro Farmers Association President Nolan Escoran.
Nolan,
Okay, aloha, everybody. I'm mute myself. There we go. Okay, aloha, everybody. Especially thank you very much and mahalo to outgoing council member Valerie Poindexter, who started off the process, and Heather Kimball for taking over the process. You know, we in Waipio, you know, when it comes to the traffic, both vehicular and pedestrian traffic, it's the people in Waipio that are affected the most by all of this traffic. The safety of the road, the stability of the road is even compromised further with additional traffic. So, you know, this is long time in the making. You know, Val can attest to that. There's been many meetings that we've attended over the years. Many community members attended meetings. I'm probably the third president in the Taro Farmers Association that's been attending meetings regarding traffic in Waipio. And, you know, it's such a blessing that we've gotten to a point where things are actually happening. So mahalo to everybody that participated in the process. And if I can be of help to anybody, you know, in terms of my knowledge as a taro farmer or my position in the County of Hawaii as a project coordinator, I'd be more than happy to help. Thank you, everybody. Aloha.
Mahalo, Nolan. Thank you very much. Kamehameha Schools, I think I am not sure who I'm passing it on to. Melissa?
Yep, mahalo.
Oh,
Mahalo,
sorry.
Darty. This is
That's
Keiko
not
Akalahiva.
Melissa.
No problem. No problem. Aloha kako, Councilmember Kimball, and of course, Darty, mahalo nui for convening this meeting tonight. I'm joining you from my home in Kaneohe, Oahu, and while I'm not from Mokuokeawe, I do have ohana there from Kohala and Puna. So I appreciate being invited to this conversation, along with my colleague, Marissa Harmon, Director of Asset Management for Hawaii Island, also on this call. Kamehameha Schools, you may have known, testified in support of the intent of Bill 217 to improve public safety. Although we understand that the bill is only the first of a number of steps to address access and safety concerns in Waipio Valley. It's great to meet Director Rodenhurst of DPW tonight. We at Kamehameha do believe that the county's geotechnical assessment of the road is a critical component in helping inform next steps. So we're looking forward to getting further information as that comes to fruition. We also understand that some residents and other cultural practitioners access the valley on foot or rather than drive, either by choice or because they have access restrictions to their property. And so we hope that the County Council continues to consider their needs as the bill moves forward. So with that said, thank you so much for inviting us tonight. We look forward to listening and being part of the discussion. Mahalo.
Mahalo Kekoa. Up next from Bishop Museum, Ray Kong.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting the museum to participate. As many of you know, the museum has owned land in Waipio Valley. It's primarily the largest landowner for a long time, even though we have not always been active participants in the valley. In the last few years since I've arrived at the museum, I mean, we were definitely trying to change that approach. We're engaged in not only issues relating to lands that the museum owns, but because there is so many adjacent property owners and access issues, we're familiarizing ourselves with everybody in the valley, trying to address issues of access. And of course, this pedestrian access down into the valley is a main concern. From the museum's perspective, you know, safety is of utmost importance, but we're also concerned that pedestrians going down into the valley end up, you know, in areas where they probably should not be, including on farms and other areas that the museum owns. So we have provided testimony in support of this measure. We understand that this is just the beginning. We're glad to be a part of it, and we'll continue to be engaged in whatever ways that we can as the largest landowner in the valley floor. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Ray. Ross Birch from Island of Hawaii Visitors Bureau.
Thanks, Darty. Aloha, everybody. Definitely want to thank our outgoing council person, Valerie, for including us in the conversation all these years, and welcoming Heather, our new council person, in the conversation. As the tourism representative, not just from a marketing standpoint, but also as a community individual, these types of areas are near and dear to us, and we also take it not lightheartedly when it comes to the marketing of these assets, where we market very specific things. And in the case of Waipio Valley, we market access only to the lookout area and suggest that visitors remain in that area rather than venturing off either by foot or by vehicle into the valley floor itself. We find that that's always been the best protocol, and it's kind of a double-edged sword for us, is getting access or sending people to the lookout helps us provide a little bit of tourism activity for the local areas in Honokaa and Kukui'aile for those restaurants and shops that rely on that type of business. So we're here in support of the area and of our council members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ross. Sorry, getting tongue-tied here. Up next, we've got, can we hear from Jim Kane, Waipio Valley taro farmer and poi processor?
Aloha, everybody who has come tonight, and I will echo that mahalo. Former Councilwoman Val and current Councilwoman Heather Kimball for introducing this bill and shepherding through the process. And I want to thank everybody who's on the call tonight, both here on the panel, but also all the folks who are streaming on Facebook. We're all here because we love Waipio Valley. We might have different perspectives, depending on what our situation is, but we're all here because we share a common love for this beautiful Vahipana of Waipio. I heard Nolan the history of these meetings. In my time, it goes back 30 years plus of meetings, and a lot of them touching on how do we take care of Waipio? That's the bottom line. How can we really take care of this valley? How do we receive people who want to come, who are drawn to Waipio, and do so in a way with aloha? The current situation is pretty much, the Wild West, anything goes, and that just doesn't do it. It's not good for Waipio. It's not good for us taro farmers. It's good for the visitors. We can do a better job. And so this bill is really the first step in putting forth an effort to do a better job of taking care of Waipio, receiving people in a positive way, and so that Waipio Valley can benefit as well as we take care of this big valley. It's a big job, taking care of the streams and the roads, so that we can continue to grow taro and provide poi for our community. Again, I look forward to the conversation tonight, and it's been an honor working on the working group. Again, everybody has good intentions in moving this forward, so that again, we can do a better job of taking care of our precious home. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Jim, for your thoughts that so many of us down in Waipio echo. We'd like to now hear from our Hawaii County Police Department representative.
Aloha, everyone. I'm Regino Solidaris. I'm the commander out here in the Hamakua district. I look forward to working with everyone, working with the community to address the concerns. We do understand. We understand the concerns, safety of that road. Understand that there are cultural and historical significance of the valley. So, like I said, I do look forward to working with everyone. Tonight, I do have my Lieutenant Roylin Falera, who's in charge of our community policing officers out here in the district, logged in also. So thank you.
Thank you. So now we're gonna go on to our questions. The first question we have, and I'm not exactly sure who I'm gonna direct this question to. So our panel, if you feel you've got the answer for this one, please feel free to jump in. The question is, how will you be able to ensure people have access to the beach? And I know there's many landowners between the bottom of the hill to the beach. So I'm not sure who's gonna, maybe Kamehameha Schools wants to talk to that, Bishop Museum. Because we're not cutting off beach access. So that's what we want everyone to know, that this is not to cut off beach access.
Yeah, I would just chime in and just add that that's correct. You know, if you get down into the valley by vehicle, then there's no impediment to you getting to the beach. And if you are not down into the valley by vehicle, you find yourself down there, again, this measure doesn't address pedestrians once you're down into the valley, or people down in the valley. And there are a variety of ways to get down into the valley other than walking. So from my perspective, as it relates to any of the museum's portions of land that relate to getting to the beach, this measure doesn't affect any of that.
Yeah, and if I could chime in, Darty, this is Val Poindexter. Yeah, so the bill only addresses the road itself that the county owns. So beach access has nothing to do with beach access, but so like what Raymond had just stated too, beach access is open. It's just the bill is addressing pedestrian access on the county road.
Thank you, Val. I forgot to call on, can I please call on Keiko Olani, if you could give us some of your thoughts, please?
Hi, aloha mai kako, onoi ka makahiki, everyone. As far as my thoughts, I'm not here to represent any specific one group. I'm here to represent my ohana as a lineal descendant of Keali'io Punui in the area of Na'alapa of the valley. For me, I think it's imperative in these conversations that we always keep in mind the genealogies and the mo'okua ohau and the lineal connection to the place of Waipio. So I think it's important that those descendants with those ties to the valley in all different time periods are acknowledged and have a seat at the table. For the beach access road as well as the county road, it is a protected historic road under the 1892 Trails and Highways Act, established by Lili'u and now passed forward into state legislation, Na'alahele abstracted road. So I think that's an important part of the conversation because that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be changed. Part of that bill also allows for changes due to condemnation, and that may be a conversational piece to have regarding this bill because of, again, the safety and those type of issues coming forward. For me, I think an important part that comes to mind is I often hear us talk about what's best for the valley and Waipio and the streams and the roads, but for us as Kanaka, it's a living family member. So the health of the streams and the health of the ecosystem and the health of our family members that are there present in the valley in all living forms, I think is an important part of the conversation to keep the integrity of Waipio as a cultural Vahipana and Vahikapu. And mahalo, yeah.
Thank you very much. Our second question is, why are you restricting walkers, not cars? Will that just mean more cars going down? I want to send this one over to Val Poindexter because we have had this conversation. Val, if you don't mind taking that
Yeah.
question.
Thank you. Yes. So we are addressing the vehicular access as well, as I had said earlier in the opening. We've been working on that for a while. It's just that the pedestrian access legislation was ready to go, and we needed to do something really quick because, COVID had slowed everything down, and now things are starting to open up again. And we were worried that it was going to go back to what it was, where one day, I think they had over almost 200 hikers, I think, going down into Waipio at one time. I think that was part of University of the Nations. Don't quote me on that, but I think that was what reported, and that was on the statistics. So when we look at the statistics, we looked at the safety issues. So working with our corporation counsel, the legal team, they acknowledged the safety issues that came up in a lot of community meetings, and the pedestrian access bill was ready to go. The vehicular access is a little more complex and going to take a little bit more time while we're working on the permitting piece of that legislation. We've been working with Ross Birch, who's been on line along with Representative Mark Nakashima to work with the rental car companies, because in their agreement it says Waipio is supposed to be off limits to the rentals, and so we're working on that. So it's still being worked on. There's a lot of pieces that need to be addressed in vehicular access, along with, with Ikaika Rodenhurst just spoke about the survey that's being done, the geotechnical survey, and that is gonna have a significant impact on whether a bill is even needed, or if that study comes back, it'll let us know, what type of or how much what can the road handle, how much can it handle, and the restrictions from that point on can be made by DPW. So and that, I'm sure Council Member Heather Kimball will definitely follow up on that. But know that I just want the public to know vehicular access we're addressing it. We've talked about it for years too, and it's a little more complex. So I don't know who else can speak about that. Whether I don't know if Ikaika can speak to that as well, but yeah, so we've worked a lot on vehicular access. We have not disregarded that. So if people think it's just pedestrian that we're addressing, no, we have to address both, because somebody spoke about this earlier, is protecting the valley. And we talk about the families and the generations that have been down there, and the valley being a living the life of the valley. So we need to protect that, and we cannot trade it off for tourism. But we want everybody to enjoy what we have in the beach and everything. But anyway, I'll stop talking. I'm starting to ramble on right now, but we are not just doing the pedestrian access. We're addressing vehicular access as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Val.
Sorry for the ramble.
That's okay. Thank you, Val.
If I may chime in on that, just to reiterate, kind of elaborate on the DPW side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, and just as Val stated, you know, it's about the safety of all travel into Waipio Valley, not just pedestrian, not just vehicular. And this study is for the geotechnical state of the slope stability and the rockfall hazards that are in the area. So we're not only looking at pedestrian safety, we're looking at safety for all travel down and up. And so making sure it's safe to traverse, making sure, and this study is going to give us a recommendation on mitigation, recommendation on what we can do to make it safe and really the level of safety it's at right now. So I, as everyone else, look forward to seeing what comes out of this report, and we will communicate that to you as soon as we have. I wish I could give you more this time, but that's what I have right now.
Mahalo, Ikaika. Okay, let's move on. We've got question number 3. I'm going to direct this question to Joe Kamelamela. The question is, isn't this bill in violation of PASH, P-A-S-H?
Aloha, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Joe.
Okay, so my camera is not working right now. And so the answer to that would be no, because the what's been proposed in the current bill, you know, would allow for access. So it recognizes the importance of PASH and the other cases that came after it. So I think it doesn't violate the PASH case.
Okay, thank you, Joe. The next question I'm going to send over to Tim Richards. Won't this bill just move those hiking pressures onto other areas?
That is a concern. I represent District 9, and I guess this is the mirror for Heather. Heather, in her district, she has Waipio. I have Pololu Valley. And this is one of the big concerns that has been brought to my attention by the constituency, the people in Kohala right now. And I think there's a bigger conversation we need to have about this. I was down in Pololu maybe 3 weeks ago. It was on a weekend, and we don't have enough parking facilities. There's no toilets. We don't have anything in Pololu Valley, and we had 40 cars trying to park at the trailhead. And so that is a huge concern for the Kohala district right now. And I think there's more conversation that we need to have. We need we've talked about a master plan for Waipio Valley. I think we have to have a master plan for the valleys at all, because it is going to push that over to the other side. And that's a big concern for mine as well as my constituency.
Thank you, Tim. Next question. What constitutes traditional practices that will allow people to walk down? What about campers going to Waimanu? Can I send that one off to Joe first, Kamelamela? What constitutes traditional practices?
So I don't have all of the legal materials that I would normally rely on. So what I'm going to state would be only, more general in terms. And I'm not too sure if what's being asked is only cultural practices, because we have gathering rights that's protected under our HRS. So and so these may be treated a little bit different. So and just because people don't live within an area doesn't mean that they don't necessarily are not allowed to practice what they believe is, whether it's cultural or gathered rights. So a lot of it that we rely on because usually it's based on a lot of research. Sometimes we look at not only our laws that exist in the books, we also look at, sometimes we have original documents that we rely on, research that could have been done by the university or other people. And then part of it too is the oral history that we have. So all of these got to be kind of looked at, and then all of these would have to be organized in a way so that it's clear as to specifically what's being noted as being what is cultural gathering or other type of native Hawaiian rights that we deal with. So I can only answer it in a general sense, and so it's going to be a work in progress, because then we have to figure out, okay, so what if at all documentation we need that the people who's up on Waipio Valley, will look at the whatever document is being relied on, and making a determination at that point whether to admit somebody in or not. Because to me, it has to be based on information that people can rely on, and that people can say, okay, and it could just be as simple as maybe when hula troop going down, because maybe they have done certain kind of practices before, and then you see that they have all of the materials, maybe even instruments, to demonstrate that they're there to practice, a certain type of protocol.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Bob Matsuda, can you please answer, what about campers going to Waimanu?
Well, my understanding is the trail that goes, the zigzag trail all the way over to Waimanu, which I did in the 50s and 60s. I no longer can do it in the 2000s, but you'll get there too someday, Tim.
Yeah, I know.
But it's a beautiful trail. It's part of our Na'alahele system, but to get to, and that may be a public trail, but I think it's an issue that we need to revisit, because in order to get there, one needs to use the main access road, which is the topic of our conversation and the issue right now, the main access road going down. And for me, as the First Deputy Director for the Department of Land and Natural Resources, under which DOFA and Na'alahele comes, and while we had one of our staff present, I thought, well thought out and well researched information in opposition, I don't think that particular bit of opposition represented the entire department, because we didn't have a chance to review it prior to. So you can take that particular document that was presented to the council as an opinion of one of our staff on the trail system. And I thought it was well documented and well researched, but it doesn't represent the department's position. That is yet our position right now, and as I represent the department in these conversations, has been primarily focused on public safety, and respecting, as we are concerned, respecting the livelihood, the life, and the lifestyles and legacy of the descendants who continue to live and work in the valley. And I think that's an important priority. That it's our department is responsible for protection, conservation, restoration of natural and cultural resources.
Thank you,
We
Bob.
consider the lifestyle, we consider the lifestyle of our host culture as a cultural resource. And therefore, we constantly have to balance natural and cultural resource concerns. At this point, I am focused on the public safety issue of the road itself. And I have personally been up and down there with my four-wheel drive when I had one. Many times I've taken people camping, young people camping out. But in all cases, we've always coordinated and got permission, whether it was Kamehameha schools or some of the taro farmers with whom we've had an opportunity to have our young people, especially from Waimea, but all over the state, have an experience of working in the Lo'i with the families. These kinds of things, we certainly support. It's part of their cultural awareness and upbringing. If whether they're keikio or have come from afar. I think I would focus, Darty, in terms of the trail and camping in Waimanu and going through that hike. It's a tough hike. Not everybody can go, but we might want to take a look at whether we need to do that kind of like Kalalau, maybe on a permit system. And if people are going to hike, and camp, my personal sense is if we don't have a camping permit there now, we may want to consider it and coordinate with the county. Because I think besides the private owners, Kamehameha Schools and Bishop Museum in particular, with all of the lessees, it's a legacy. The valley is a legacy.
Can I interrupt you?
Okay. Yeah, you can.
Just coming from information that I know, that when they come camping to Waimanu, they do have a permit, either on their phone or a paper permit.
Okay.
And the rangers up at the top
Okay.
have,
checked it.
And so that might be, a way that we can work that into access, but that's something that needs to be looked at. Heather, if you can look at that, you have to go ahead and address that. But go ahead.
And Dari, I think the question is a tricky, complicated one, because while the state has responsibility for maintenance and the Nalahele system and the trail and Waimanu Valley, for example, in order to get there, you have to cross a lot of private property and get down into having permission from the people to cross. Right now, I would focus on the public safety issue of the road. I think that's a serious concern. And for people who don't think it's serious, you can see all the wrecks that are along the slopes further down of people who didn't think that it was a serious drive, and one that needs, you cannot just drive there first time and think you're good at it.
Yeah.
It takes learning, understanding and learning the road.
Okay.
And that's as much of a responsibility as understanding and learning how to take care and cultivate the kalo. But
Thank
I'm
you,
going
Bob.
on and on too much. But that's our concern right now, public safety.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Another question that we have is, Have we addressed the improvements to the lookout area? Parking has always been a huge issue at Waipio Valley Lookout. Can someone speak to improvements that may be being looked at, or if there is a master plan for the valley, would that include improvements to the lookout? Has anything like that been looked at? Val, have you?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
if I may, again, these are all really good questions. A lot of things are coming up that yes, we do need to address. It's really important to understand what this bill is and what it isn't meant to do. This bill is meant to address, like Bob says, a public safety issue. We have our education officers up at the lookout. We've had them there for, I think 13 years now, and they collect a lot of information. And there are times when, 300-400 people a day, pre-COVID, of course, were hiking the hill, and it's a dangerous situation. Someone going to get hurt. And so it's something that we just need to address. This bill is not meant to shut down Waipio. Nobody wants to do that. It's also, this bill itself in it is not going to address the vehicular traffic. It's not going to address people's actions when they're in the valley and what they're doing down in the valley. A lot of work has to come after this bill. And the hope is that this is really getting the ball rolling. We need to address this very serious public safety issue. And, we hear all this talk about how people are, we need to address this masterism model that's been in place and find a better way to do this. And that's what we're doing. As far as, the facilities up at the lookout, the community, under the leadership of Antiku'ule Badua in 2006, pushed for the county to buy the rice property as the first purchase of the Ponk with the Ponk funds. And it's long been talked about for at least 20 years about putting together what we're calling a cultural center or heritage center, a place again that where we can receive people, a place where we can start to regulate. We do have to come up with a carrying capacity for the valley itself. And so, this is just really the first step in moving forward in a positive way. We can do something very special for the valley and take care. We can create jobs. We can also, find resources so the valley can be taken care of long term. And really, to support the taro farmers and the hard work that all of us taro farmers do in providing food for this island. And so, the lands up at the lookout, both the county park lands itself, the Ponk properties, the rice property, and also Kamehameha school lands up along the rim have all been talked about and are part of the discussion. And so the next step would really be to facilitate a process to come up with this master plan. How do we receive people? Curious, I just heard in today's news in Kohala at Pololu, DLNR in partnership with the major landowner there, Surety, has just finalized a plan to put together a proper parking lot, comfort station, and a place to take care of that mess that Councilman Richards had spoken about. And so, and Pololu is different from Waipio.
Yeah.
Pololu, nobody living there. Waipio is home and a place of livelihood for many, many people. And Lay had spoken about that. This is family. And when we see things not going right, we want to take the steps. So again, this bill is only meant to address this first step of too many hikers on the hill, 99% of which is tourists. And we just have to find a better way. But all these other issues, including rental jeeps, including what is public-private, has to be addressed. Okay,
thank you, Jim.
Hi,
Thanks,
Darty,
Jim.
can I Darty,
oh.
Val Poindexter, real quick, because online I see a lot of feed going on about, allowing tourists and rental jeeps and not allowing, it's illegal for a homeowner or resident. But I just want the residents and landowners there to know that there is an exemption for you. So, I guess maybe Heather can share, I don't have the bill in front of me, but share the exemptions, which includes residents or terra farmers or home landowners down in the valley. So just to make that clear, because I've been seeing that going on the feed that, you know, it's illegal for homeowner resident. How dare, you know, how dare we do that? But they're exempt. So I just want to make that clear. Thanks.
Heather, do you have the bill in front of you that you could read the exemptions off of?
I'm in the process of pulling it up. So go ahead and go on to the next question and I will do that.
Okay. Val, stay on because the next question that came up is, will the rangers up at the top be in charge of regulating hikers?
Let me unmute that. Okay, yeah, so what's happening is the rangers on the top will probably not be able to enforce it, but working, that's why we have the police department working closely with us, because should they violate that, that's when the rangers will be able to call our police department to come over and enforce that, you know, with a pedestrian going down. So the same with the vehicular access well, a little different with the vehicular access. When we're looking at permitting, we're talking about, it's just in the talking stage about, do we deputize our, you know, educational information and educational officers so that they could, you know, write a ticket or something. That's just in the talking stages for the vehicular permitting access. But as far as the pedestrian one, they will be in working with our police department, and the police will be the ones to help enforce that. Am I correct, Captain Solidaris?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, so the Rangers, as you pointed out, you know, they play a huge role. They'll have the initial contact. They'll be speaking to the members of the community. They'll be trying to go down there. Obviously, if they need assistance, if they need enforcement, then they'll be contacting us.
Thank you, Captain. Another question that we have coming up is for Ikaika. Is the Geotech report expected before the county council meeting on the 23rd?
Hi, I'm getting a little lag on my video. Can you hear me good?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. No, the report isn't expected until January. And again, I wish I could get it sooner, but that's just what they're giving me the report in January.
Thank you.
Mm.
Okay. Do we have any other questions that have come in, Heather?
Yeah, there was one. Sorry, I haven't had a chance to type it yet, and maybe this is another question for Joe Kamelamela. Just in determining whether or not this piece of legislation is in violation of the Highways Act, and let's see, HRS 264-1 and Section 7.1. Hopefully, he knows that what I'm referring to there.
So this is Joe. Can you repeat the sections?
So it's does this restricting Hawaii residents' foot traffic into Waipio Valley violate the Highways Act of 1892, HRS Section 264-1, and HRS Section 7.1, that roads are free to all? I think you've kind of responded to this already, but it would bear repeating.
Wait, so what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to try to read the section that you talk about first. Because I seem to be getting some reverb, sorry, but I have to ask you to repeat the section slowly.
Okay, we just scrolled off of it. We'll be back to that. Just in the meantime, I will mention that so that the resolution was amended to allow for emergency access for owners, lessees, and renters in there in Waipio Valley, as well as anyone participating in traditional practices. So those exemptions have been added to the bill that will be heard on the 23rd. That is the first full council reading. It will need to go through 2 full council readings. So people are welcome to continue to contribute with testimony on the bill through the county council's website, or the direct email address is counciltestimony@hawaiicounty.gov. If you have testimony that you'd like to submit, you are also welcome to call the county clerk's office and participate via the WebEx platform, so you can testify in person. All of that information on how to participate through WebEx is available on the county website. So Joe, referring the piece of legislation that I was originally referring to is HRS 264-1 section 7.1.
Oh, okay. So let me look at it. Because like what I know now is that the current bill is based on what we have on our county ordinance, which allows these kind of reasonable restrictions. Okay, so there is an ordinance that we have that we're using. So now I'm going to look at the sections that you quote, and so I have to read it. So I'll come back to it later once I finish read these sections.
Okay, great. It is now 6:58. I'm going to open up the floor to anyone else that would like to make final comments from the working group. If you can just put your name in the chat here on Zoom, and I'll call you one at a time. Is there anyone that would like to kick off final comments before we do our closing protocol? Ku, go ahead, please. Auntie Ku.
Mahalo nui. Our ohana have been residents at Waipio Lookout for IKEA for the last 30 years, and I can tell you how much the traffic has increased and how very, very dangerous our front yard has become for so many reasons, with too many cars.
Testimony at Hawaii County. Is that what it was?
Really looking at long-term solutions is what we need to do rather than just short-term fixes. But I did want to share with everybody that the road is actually built on an ancient trail, which is the Ala o Pailolo. So as far as trails and paths and all that, even though it is a road now, it was tradition. It was a very important trail, just like the Muliwai Trail was to go to Maimanu. The Ala o Pailolo was a well-maintained and well-used trail by our kupuna. And so as far as that part is concerned, and access via traditional trails, etc., because that just hadn't been mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Ku. Anyone else? Some closing remarks.
This is Jim Kane. And again, I just want to thank everybody for participating in this discussion and in this effort. Again, this is just to get the ball rolling, stuff that we've been talking about for 30 years now. Reports from the Waipio Task Force, legislative task force in 1991, and practicum reports with Professor Minervi in the late 1990s, early 2000s. On and on. And so it's something we've been talking about for a long time. And I think a lot of people, we've reached this point, this kind of critical mass point, where we have to do something. We can do a better job. We can do some really good things as we continue to take care of this precious valley. So I hope everybody, comes with passion, comes with aloha, comes with solutions, and bring to the table as we move forward. Mahalo.
Thank you, Jim. Heather?
Thank you, Darty. Thank you again for facilitating tonight. Mahalo to all the members of the YPO working group that were able to participate. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to do yet another Zoom meeting. Thank you to all of the county participants that have joined us on Facebook Live. We appreciate your involvement. Again, now the next steps are on you. Whether you're for or against or just want to submit comments on the bill, you can do that through the county website. Again, council testimony at hawaiicounty.gov. That was put in the comments on the Facebook feed, or you can call the phone number 961-8255 to be added to the list of in-person testimony via WebEx. December 23rd is the hearing on that bill. I am also willing, if you want to share anything with me personally, heather.kimball@hawaiicounty.gov. Certainly open to taking any feedback as I consider how to move forward from this point. With that, again, thank you for everyone for your participation tonight, and I will pass it back to Darty to initiate the closing protocol. Mahalo.
Thank you, everyone.
Heather, so before we close, so
Yes.
I have completed, looking at the sections that you had talked about, and
thank you.
And HRS 7-1, does relate to something that I talked about before about gathering rights. So, so, 7-1, does speak of certain rights that people have in order to get certain kind of materials like firewoods, and then but also have a right of way for certain things. So this particular bill that we have now kind of provides and protect that interest that is of significant concern when we talk about cultural gathering rights that is exercised. But this is just one of the statutes that does recognize that in importance of preservation of the cultural and gathering rights. So that's 7.1. And then as far as the other statute that you talk about, there is no real violation, because still people are being provided some kind of access, but there are reasonable restrictions that the law does allow, and that is recognized also within our ordinance, which this particular bill is based on.
Thank you, Joe. Kiku Olani?
Hi, aloha mai. I just wanted to share really quick on what Uncle Joe just shared about the HRS 7-1 and 264-1. 264-1 actually comes from the 1892 Trails and Highways Act established by the DU. Was one of our last pieces of legislation. If you read that law pretty carefully, which anyone can have access and go look at the stipulations and the subsections under there, but it specifies that while they are trails, it specifies vested as non-vehicular public rights of way. So we know with any living trail that, like Auntie Ku said about the Ala o Pailolo, when they evolve during the terms of modernization, it changes how we address and use those roads. So that's an important factor for people to consider, that as this road became a mule road, and then a Jeep road, and then now an overly used vehicle road, it's no longer specified as only a non-vehicular trail. It's become a vehicular access road. So that can also change how the jurisdiction and how it's managed. And then to touch on 7-1, a really important part of this law is stated that it's for those with allodial titles to their lands. So within Waipio, that includes the lineal descendants of the LCAs. Bishop Museum is a part of that, and they're aware of that. Kamehameha schools and all of the other private landowners within there. The Mulivai and Lalakea are considered crown lands, which are now under state legislation and jurisdictive powers. So the alloidial title is an important piece of that 7-1. And if you look at the cases that set precedents over time, we often state cultural practice and use of, say, the forest, the Vaukele, or the shoreline. But within there, it was really important that you had a lineal connection to that ahupua'a to be able to enact those rights. And we don't always treat it as such, but there are cases that you can look up under 7-1. But in the first two lines of 7-1, it does state that alloidial title is an important part to be able to access the springs, the running water, the roads, for those type of rights. Mahalo.
Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone for taking the time, like Heather said, to be a part of this meeting tonight. I know that there's a lot of public comment. As Heather said, she's gonna post the information if you want to testify for the county council. The first meeting is on the 23rd. Heather, when is the next meeting after that, the second meeting?
The next hearing would be on the 5th of January.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, 6th. The committees are on the 5th. It would be on the 6th.
Thank you, Heather. I was reminded as we open everything, we also need to close it. And so I'd like to go ahead and ask Ku Kakalau to please do our closing protocol for tonight.
Mahalo nui, and I also want to echo mahalo to everybody who was here this evening and to everybody that will continue to work on taking care, Malama, right, taking care of Waipio. We're going to do 2 closing chants. The first one is a thank you, thanking all of you within the sound of our voice, whether you were in Hawaii or outside of Hawaii during this meeting, all the way to the most powerful deity. The last one is the second, Oli, is a prayer for long life. During this time now, it is really important that we stay healthy. And so this is a prayer that is an ancient prayer, but was given a modern era. And so we'd like to end with Okauola. Mahalo e, mahalo e nā makua, mahalo e nā kupuna, mahalo e nā lili o Hawaii, mahalo e nā makua, mahalo e nā akua, mahalo e. O kauola e ke akua, e nana mai kau mau pula pula, e ola kaniko, a hau maka I ole, a palalau hala, a kau I ka puane ane. Alaila lave aku oia ui ke aloha ke ae. Mahalo.
Mahalo to you, Ku. Beautiful.
Mahalo, everyone.
Mahalo, everyone.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you,
Hello.
Darty and Val.